Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the April 5th, 2017 edition of The Breast There Is, The Breast There Was, and The Breast There Ever Will Be Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Mikey B, and before I get into my thoughts and reviews of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live, I think that I would be remiss if I didn't first discuss the results from WrestleMania 33. While it was overall a decent show with some memorable moments, it once again dragged on way too long. The running time for the show was around 5 hours. And this doesn't include the 3 pre-show matches. You can see why I have no interest in viewing the pre-show matches at any pay-per-view. This was never the case with WrestleManias in the past, besides the recent ones, that is. Maybe dancing around the 4-hour mark, but this is getting crazy. 5 hours and they had just 10 matches in that time. Anyways, the show opened with AJ Styles versus Shane McMahon. This match wound up being better than I thought it would be, as Shane wrestled better than I imagined he would. He's still not really a wrestler, and he went up against arguably the best wrestler in the company. This was never a match which I was excited about, as Styles could have had a much better match with a much better wrestler instead. I think it's really unfair to wrestlers who work year-round for this company to be snubbed from receiving a match at the biggest show of the year, so the boss's son gets his chance to earn some extra money. Not surprisingly, Styles was the victor. Next up on the card was Chris Jericho defending his United States Championship against Kevin Owens. These are two guys I really like, and I was disappointed that they weren't fighting for the more important WWE Universal Championship. This was almost the case until Owens got robbed of his title by Bill Goldberg in March. The story of these two coming together, becoming best friends, and then the relationship falling apart was one of the prevalent stories of the company this past year, and should have been rewarded with a top match at WrestleMania instead of being one of the early undercard matches. The match was solid except for the ending, in my opinion. The match should have finished with a signature finishing move by Owens, but it didn't. You can even see that the crowd wasn't expecting the match to end when it did. I feel that it would have made the match finish on the proper note instead of the unexpected, rather weak finish it did. Oddly enough, this happened again in the following match, which was a fatal 4-way elimination match for the Raw Women's Championship. This match had champion Bayley defending against Charlotte, Sasha Banks, and Nia Jax. The eliminations in the match went a little too quickly, and like I said, the ending came at a point which didn't feel right, or at least wasn't executed at the proper moment. You can also see that people weren't expecting this to finish when it did. The last few minutes were rather sloppy as Charlotte attempted to expose a turnbuckle to use to her advantage, but the padding was never quite removed, which damaged the supposed dangerous appeal it should have had. Certainly not the best match for any of these competitors. Next up was the Raw Triple Threat Tag Team Ladder Match for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson came into the match as champions, set to defend against Enzo Amore and Big Cass, and Sheamus and Cesaro. As this match was set to get underway, the WrestleMania hosts, which was the tag team The New Day, came out and announced that this match was now a fatal 4-way match. I must say that they really sold it well when they would be the fourth team, as they were even in their ring attire. And then the music hit and the crowd went crazy as one of the greatest tag teams from the Attitude Era, the Hardy Boys, made their surprising return. The crowd was going wild during this match, for obvious reasons, and much to my delight, the Hardy Boys wound up winning the match and the Raw Tag Team Championships. Their return was definitely the best moment of the entire event as far as I'm concerned, a great WrestleMania moment. This exciting Tag Team Championship match was followed by a mixed tag team match which had John Cena and Nikki Bella facing off against The Miz and Maryse. This was a weak, predictable match, typical for a mid-card match on one of the weekly television shows, but certainly not a WrestleMania caliber match. Following the end of this match, though, there was some excitement, as John Cena, the person, not the wrestling character, did appear to legitimately propose to Nikki Bella for marriage. They then hugged a lot of family members who were seated ringside afterwards. I must say that it was a nice moment, which I don't think I've ever seen before in wrestling, unless it was scripted. It was a nice finish to an otherwise forgetful match. Next up on the card was Seth Rollins versus Triple H in a non-sanctioned match, which is really just a fancy term for a street fight match. This was the longest match of the night, and it certainly felt like it. To me, this match was very predictable, as Seth Rollins defeated Triple H with the pedigree finishing move. One of the biggest highlights of the match seemed to be when Triple H accidentally knocked his wife, Stephanie McMahon, through a table ringside. This certainly got the biggest reaction from the crowd. As was the case in many recent WrestleManias, including this one, Triple H seems to do just this one match for the year to simultaneously put someone over in the company who he and Vince like, and also to prevent a more deserving full-time performer from making the card and getting a great payday. Congratulations, Triple H, on another boring match. If Triple H is on the card again at WrestleMania, don't even bother watching and just know that his opponent will win. The following match was one of the few matchups at WrestleMania which I was really looking forward to, which was Bray Wyatt defending the WWE Championship against Randy Orton. Sadly, the match was a disappointment. Bray Wyatt won his first WWE Championship just in February, and I was hoping that they would continue his reign at the top for a while, given how interesting his character is. During the match, they used creepy visual effects over the whole surface of the ring a few times, which included images of maggots and other little insects, which we can believe was Wyatt's attempt to break down Orton. Randy Orton did overcome these effects and won in a relatively short matchup. It makes you wonder what the point was for these images if they didn't help Bray Wyatt win the match. Following this championship match was the other major men's championship match, which was Bill Goldberg defending his WWE Universal Championship against Brock Lesnar. I never liked this matchup, including the last time they fought at Survivor Series just a few months prior. Brock Lesnar is a terrific athlete and wrestler who is beloved by the fans and cheered at every chance when they see him, which is about 4 times a year. You see, Brock Lesnar a few years ago signed with the WWE as a part-time performer, which is great for someone who clearly lacks a passion for this industry, as he is paid huge sums of money for minimal effort. I, for one, am sick of these part-time guys getting all the great matches and paydays. And Lesnar's opponent at WrestleMania, Bill Goldberg, is a 50-year-old whose only good wrestling days are way behind him. Since he returned after being away for 12 years to have this little feud with Lesnar, all of his appearances and all of his matches totaled less than 15 minutes. Well, he certainly deserves to be a champion and in important high-paying matches, right? This is such a travesty that these two got not only a match at WrestleMania, but a championship match at WrestleMania. People should have booed these two out of the building, much like they did the last time they faced each other, which was 13 years ago at WrestleMania 20 in Madison Square Garden, New York City. New York has some of the best wrestling crowds because they are always very honest, and I suspect that the WWE has refused to hold any major events there in a long time because of their candid nature. Anyways, back to the match. No surprise that Lesnar defeated old man, part-time wonder Bill Goldberg in less than 5 minutes. Thanks for the memorable WWE WrestleMania Championship match, WWE. The penultimate match at WrestleMania was for the SmackDown Women's Championship, which was titled the Six-Pack Challenge. To interpret, this was the WWE's attempt to include as many of the women on the SmackDown roster as possible in a single match. This match was very short and was very frantic. Not surprisingly, the hometown girl, Naomi, won the title. And the main event of the night featured Roman Reigns against The Undertaker. This was also a match which I was very curious to see because I wasn't sure which direction the creative team would go in choosing who would win. It appears that my worst fears for this match were realized. It was a good back-and-forth match with both men hitting their signature moves. The Undertaker has had one of the most prolific careers in the history of the company, and especially at this event, where his record heading into the night was 23-1. Much to the chagrin of myself and just about every other wrestling fan in the WWE universe, The Undertaker lost to Roman Reigns, putting his record at 23-2. I had a feeling that the company might put Roman over, since they've been pushing him for well over 2 years now, despite the fans protesting that he is not the face of this company. At the conclusion of the match, after The Undertaker stood up, he then unfastened his gloves and placed them in the center of the ring along with his coat and hat, possibly symbolizing his time has come to an end. I personally would be very sad if this is true, as he is one of the greats and one of my absolute favorites. After all, I remember his debut and was in attendance for some of his big moments, like his first title win against Hulk Hogan at Survivor Series 1991, and I saw him win the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 23 against Batista. We all knew this day would eventually come, but none of us would have ever thought that Roman Reigns would be his final opponent. I'm still hoping that he may have one more match in his career. I have no idea why Vince McMahon and his team insist on Roman being the next face of the company when the fans have so adamantly refused this idea for well over 2 years. I can't remember another character who the company has pushed so strongly for so long with such a heavy resistance from the fan base. The proper thing to do by now would have been to turn Roman Reigns into a bad guy heel character. They can always revert him back to the good guy babyface in the future if it doesn't work out. So, we're all left wondering if this is truly the end for The Undertaker's career. This was the very somber ending which we all got at the conclusion of WrestleMania. With WrestleMania 33 in the books, it's now time to turn the page in the never-ending story as we carry on the next night at Monday Night Raw. The Raw after WrestleMania has historically been one of the best episodes each year, and this episode kept that tradition alive. The reason is that this is truly the start of the next year, with new storylines and usually the introduction of some new performers. This crowd in Orlando, Florida, helped this episode to be as good as it was. At the introduction of the show, The commentators were silent as the camera just scanned the audience for several minutes as the crowd made several chants, such as Undertaker and Thank You Taker, to Roman sucks, and F you Roman, though they would use the full words. It carried on for several minutes, probably for nearly 5 minutes, until something happened. And then Roman Reigns' music hit, and he made his way down to the ring. The chants continued on for many more minutes, preventing Roman from saying anything. When he finally did speak, after around 10 minutes of crowd chants, the only thing the terribly uncharismatic Reigns had to say was, "This is my yard now." He then left the ring, being booed off to the backstage area. Next up, the Hardy Boys then defended their new Raw Tag Team Championships against the former champions Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. The crowd was excited to see that their return wasn't just a dream, as the Hardys retained their championship. After this match, there was a Cruiserweight Championship match where champion Neville successfully defended his title against Raw newcomer Mustafa Ali. Despite his loss, Ali made an impressive debut on Raw. Following this, the fans were treated to a rare appearance by WWE CEO and Chairman Vince McMahon. I love that once he got in the ring, the fans brought back the "Roman sucks" chants for him. I mean, we all know Vince and his team are responsible for this, so great job, Orlando crowd, reminding him of his terrible decision-making as it pertains to Roman Reigns. He did deliver some exciting news to the crowd, though. He mentioned how next week on Monday Night Raw, there will be a superstar shakeup, meaning some wrestlers will shift shows from Monday Night Raw to SmackDown Live and vice versa. And he also delivered some very exciting news that got me and many others in the WWE universe very excited, which is naming a new general manager for Monday Night Raw. None other than new Hall of Famer Kurt Angle. The crowd went crazy for this news, and Kurt Angle's first appearance in a WWE ring in a long time. The next segment had the tag team The New Day come out and issue an open challenge to any tag team. The team that came out made their Raw debut, which was the team called The Revival, a team which arrived from the WWE's developmental show NXT. The Revival picked up the victory and received a strong, positive reaction from the crowd. With the addition of the Hardy Boys and the Revival, the tag team division is looking much brighter now. The next match was a 6-women tag team match, which had Bayley, Sasha Banks, and Dana Brooke against Charlotte, Nia Jax, and a returning Emma. The team of Bayley, Sasha Banks, and Dana Brooke were victorious, as Charlotte submitted to Sasha Banks' submission hold called the Bank Statement. The next segment on Raw featured Brock Lesnar and his manager Paul Heyman come to the ring and address the audience as the new WWE Universal Champion. Paul Heyman is easily one of the best performers on the microphone, while Brock Lesnar certainly is not, which makes sense for this pair to be together. Paul Heyman can cut a promo with the best of them, and they began by talking about ending Goldberg's little fairy tale run, and that they were now turning their attention to the other person who defeated The Undertaker at WrestleMania, Roman Reigns. I don't like where this is heading, because unless something has changed in Lesnar's contract, he still will only be performing as a part-timer. Meaning, do you think that a part-timer will hold the championship for very long? Exactly. Lesnar will drop the belt pretty soon, likely to everyone's favorite wrestler, Roman Reigns. The segment was interrupted by the beast named Braun Strowman, who also made it known that he wants a shot too at the title. Following this, we see Kurt Angle backstage as he is confronted by the tag team Enzo Amore and Big Cass, saying how they would like another shot at the tag team titles. Kurt Angle then puts them in a match against Sheamus and Cesaro to determine the new number one contenders for the championship. Sheamus and Cesaro were victorious in the forthcoming matchup. The next match was Sami Zayn versus Jinder Mahal. This match was very fast, with Zayn being the victor. It really was a time filler type of match. And then came the main event, as Seth Rollins and Chris Jericho were set to face Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe. Prior to this match, Owens and Joe attacked Jericho backstage, rendering him unable to fight. Kurt Angle promised Rollins a new teammate. The new teammate was the returning Finn Balor, who ironically had to give up his Universal Championship one day after he won it from Seth Rollins because Rollins injured him in their title match at SummerSlam. Balor and Rollins did prevail, marking a strong return for Finn Balor to close out the show. Overall, a great Monday Night Raw with the promise of another exciting show next week when the shakeup occurs. SmackDown Live the following night was not quite as exciting as the show the night before, but still had some good moments throughout. New WWE Champion Randy Orton came out early in the show, only to be interrupted by Bray Wyatt, who issued another challenge to Orton in a different kind of match called the House of Horrors match. We have no idea what this match will entail yet, but it appears that this feud will continue for a while yet. After Wyatt attacked Orton in the ring, he was helped by a returning Wyatt family member, Eric Rowan. To me, the Wyatt family is a great faction, and the WWE doesn't have too many factions at the moment, which I feel is a bit detrimental to the story. Anyways, after these two were attacking Orton, former Wyatt family member Luke Harper came down and helped Orton, which set up a tag team match for the main event. Other important events included the debuts of Ty Dillinger, as he defeated Curt Hawkins, as well as the memorable introduction to the main roster of Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura didn't even have a match, but his introduction was electric. New SmackDown Women's Champion Naomi also had a match against former champion Alexa Bliss. Naomi retained the title after defeating Bliss by submission. Another match included a street fight between Intercontinental Champion Dean Ambrose and Baron Corbin, which Corbin won after some brutal stunts with chairs and a table and other weapons. This was a rematch of their WrestleMania pre-show match, but not for the title, ensuring that this feud is continuing. Shane McMahon also came down to the ring to address the crowd about the roster shakeup, but was interrupted by AJ Styles. Styles came down to shake hands with Shane after their WrestleMania match, and to also state that he hopes that he stays on SmackDown Live because he claimed that it's the show that AJ Styles built. In the main event, Randy Orton and Luke Harper defeated Bray Wyatt and Eric Rowan after Bray, for some reason, appeared to leave his teammate by himself as Bray briefly disappeared and was seen midway up the ramp, which leads from the ring. Regardless of this somewhat confusing finish to the tag match, the feud between Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt is definitely still on. Well, that's about it for the recap of this very exciting week in the world of the WWE. Please feel free to write any comments or questions below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you liked what you heard. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.